During the early years of the Cold War, it was realized that in the opening stages of a war, conventional air bases would be targeted for destruction with nuclear weapons. Military planners saw a need for aircraft that could operate without runways. One concept explored was for vertical takeoff and landing, or VTOL, aircraft that could operate from underground bases. This led to a very bizarre design being studied, that of a disc-shaped aircraft. During the 1950s, the Canadian company Avro Canada attempted to develop a disc-shaped, supersonic vertical takeoff and landing fighter-bomber. Initial work started in 1952. However, the Canadian government ended the project when the cost rose too high. Later, interest from the U.S. Air Force led to the project being restarted and a contract being awarded to the company in 1958 for what became Weapons System 606A. The goal of the project was to create a saucer-shaped aircraft capable of flying at Mach 3.5 at 100,000 feet. The U.S. Army also joined the project as part of research into small VTOL vehicles for battlefield use. The company's research was known as Project 1794. Data from research showed that a circular wing would serve the requirements of both services. Two small test vehicles were built to test the concept. They were designated VC-9AV, VZ for experimental vertical flight, 9 for the ninth proposal, and AV for Avro. The Avrocar consisted of a frisbee-like, disc-shaped fuselage, 18 feet in diameter and 3.5 feet thick. A 124-blade turborotor was located in the center and was powered by 3 jet engines. The turborotor would produce downward thrust to create an air cushion or ground effect where the craft would float at low altitude. With thrust directed to the rear, the craft would accelerate and gain altitude. Attitude control was achieved by adjusting control flaps located inside the fuselage surrounding the rotor, directing thrust. The craft had 2 single-seat cockpits, one on each side of the craft. Testing began in early 1959, and serious stability problems were immediately revealed. The control system was repeatedly modified. However, it was unable to be flown higher than a few feet above the ground, and the highest speed achieved was around 100 miles per hour. Testing using scale models at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio showed that the air cushion under the Avrocar became unstable only a few feet above the ground. The craft would have been unable to achieve supersonic speeds. However, despite this, testing was allowed to proceed to verify whether or not the craft would still be suitable for the Army. The first prototype was sent to NASA's Ames Research Center at Moffett Field in California. There, wind tunnel testing showed that the aircraft lacked sufficient control for high-speed flight and was indeed unstable. Flight tests with the second prototype confirmed the wind tunnel test. If flown more than 3 feet above the ground, it became uncontrollable and could only attain a speed of 35 miles per hour. The second of the 2 Avrocars had the most testing, being flown a total of 75 hours. Despite the extensive testing and modifications to the crafts, the problems with control and stability could not be overcome, and the project was finally canceled in 1961. Interestingly, it accidentally foreshadowed the development of the hovercraft, despite it being considered a failure. Both Avrocars exist today and are on display in museums. The first prototype is on display at the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio, and the second prototype is on display at the U.S. Army Transportation Museum at Fort Eustis in Virginia. Thanks for watching, and if you liked this video, please hit like and subscribe. And remember, when the future was cool,